Hey guys, Mike at the Pop Culture Playhouse, and welcome to the new episode of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. I have another great stack of titles to discuss this week, including the Audrey Hepburn collection, which collects three of her most iconic films, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Sabrina, and Funny Face, and puts them all in one collection for your viewing enjoyment. Next up, we're going to take a look at the complete second season of Bates Motel, plus the directorial debut of Mike Myers with Supermensch, The Legend of Shep Gordon, and the extended director's cut of Once Upon a Time in America. So sit tight and we'll be back in just a second. Alrighty guys, and welcome back to the latest installment of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. The first release we're going to take a look at is available right now from Warner Brothers, and it's the Audrey Hepburn collection. This three-movie Blu-ray collection compiles three of Miss Hepburn's most iconic films, and the first one we're going to take a look at is the Academy Award-winning 1961 effort, Breakfast at Tiffany's. Now, this film is obviously one that Hepburn fans worldwide really link as their favorite Hepburn film of all time, and once you get wrapped up in this one, it's really easy to see why. It, of course, is based on a story by Truman Capote and stars Audrey Hepburn in the delightful role of Holly Golightly. She's this really free-spirited and carefree woman living in Manhattan who just has one set goal in mind of marrying a rich millionaire somewhere in New York City. It isn't until a new neighbor moves into her brownstone apartment complex, who's played by George Peppard. He's a struggling writer, and he strikes up, a friendship with Holly, and, before long, their friendship kind of enters into a romantic territory, and the two kind of learn, numerous things about one another. Skeletons in their closets are revealed, and, it's just a really, really romantic setup and a really, great display of, just excellent on-screen chemistry between Hepburn and Peppard. This is obviously one of the all-time, most beloved romantic films of all time, and it really comes through in the performances from Hepburn and Peppard. I just think that there's so much to, really revel and love in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Audrey Hepburn, just such a charmer and just so delightful and beautiful in every scene that, she's in. She just has this, just like her character, this very free-spirited and jovial spirit about herself. One moment you really love her and it's so easy to understand why George Peppard is just totally enraptured with her, but then, the deeper and deeper that you get into Breakfast at Tiffany's, you kind of learn things about, her background and history that's kind of gone down in her past that comes to light, and through the thick and thin, for better or worse, George Peppard really sticks by her side and, really wants to stick it out and see, if love can really last between the two of them. So it's, a really, really charming, romantic, film. There aren't really many films that can really, reach the kind of heights that Breakfast at Tiffany's did. It's a real charmer, and, like I said, this actually did win 2 Academy Awards back in 1961. Just an all-around great film, really nicely shot in New York City in the early 1960s, really getting this great party atmosphere of, these upper-class yuppies living in these really expensive brownstones, and it's just so, again, beautifully shot, just really great, images and set pieces of New York City at that time that just look so bright and vibrant in this film. So, again, it's so easy to see why Hepburn fans worldwide really cite this as their favorite Hepburn film of all time, because, what can be said that hasn't been said already about this one? Everybody knows Breakfast at Tiffany's is an all-time classic and will go on to continue to delight audiences worldwide. So I absolutely adore Breakfast at Tiffany's. I think that Audrey Hepburn is unbelievably beautiful and just so charming and delightful in this one. George Peppard is really great, real nice yin to her yang, and you have a really, really funny performance by Mickey Rooney, who plays the Asian landlord in the apartment complex that Hepburn and Peppard live. I know at the time it was very controversial as it being, kind of a little bit racist towards, the Asian population or what have you, but I kind of see it as just being, very, free-spirited and very carefree. I don't think there was any, bad taste or, ill feelings that went into the performance, when they shot it originally, but Mickey Rooney, as always, has really funny funny in this one. He's absolutely unrecognizable in the film, so a really great appearance from Mickey Rooney. Brief, but again, really great. So, once again, guys, Breakfast at Tiffany's, an all-time classic and a really great reason to pick up this great collection. Alrighty guys, and the next film that you're going to find in the Audrey Hepburn collection is of course 1954's Sabrina. Directed by one of the greatest American directors of all time, Billy Wilder, Sabrina focuses on the LeBray brothers of Long Island. They're two very rich and lucrative brothers who have done very well for themselves in business. William Holden plays the more immature, laid-back playboy of the brothers, whereas Bogey, Humphrey Bogart, of course, plays the elder brother, who is, all work and no play, and the much more business savvy of the two. It isn't until their chauffeur's daughter actually returns from Paris and is all grown up and looking very glamorous, where the two brothers end up kind of, developing a bit of a love triangle surrounding Sabrina, because before Sabrina went off to Paris to kind of join a culinary academy, she was really obsessed and just head over heels for David, who was, played by William Holden. So upon returning, William Holden's character is finally, of course, paying attention to her, but of course he's, engaged for, the fourth time, soon to be married, whereas Humphrey Bogart's character, the more mature, one that's always thinking of the business first and foremost, is trying to figure out a way that he can kind of keep his brother's eye on the prize and, keep him level-headed with his soon-to-be new wife and kind of detour, his attraction towards Sabrina. All the while, Humphrey Bogart's character is actually getting attracted and slowly falling in love with Sabrina himself. So it really kind of, this very funny, humorous love triangle between the three ensues, and it's just non-stop hilarity, and again, very, very romantic stuff. This is beautifully shot in black and white that comes across just so elegantly on the Blu-ray treatment. As you can see from the cast members in this one, this is just all around just, high-profile actors, some of the best of all time. Again, William Holden, Humphrey Bogart, always giving his very stone-cold, dry coolness in this one. And, of course, the gorgeous, gorgeous Audrey Hepburn, pre-Breakfast at Tiffany's. Again, this is a Billy Wilder production, so you can always count on some very, snappy and quotable dialogue just every step of the way. That's one of the, really, high points of Sabrina, is just the snappy, great dialogue that really keeps it moving and makes each character as memorable as they are. Again, much like in Breakfast at Tiffany's, the on-screen chemistry between all three of the main players is just really great and really makes the film as special as it is. I would go as far to say that it is a perfect film. I mean, everybody is great. Billy Wilder's direction, of course, the screenplay is fantastic, the performances bring it to life, and just the overall sense of romance in the air in this one is great, and some great, great humor to be found in this one. So, needless to say, much like Breakfast at Tiffany's, it's an all-time classic, one of my favorites, and one that I would highly recommend to any Hepburn fan out there. And the final film that you're going to find in the Audrey Hepburn collection is the Academy Award-nominated 1956 effort, Funny Face. Now, not only does this star the beautiful Audrey Hepburn, but it has her joining forces with the iconic Fred Astaire. Now, in Funny Face, it deals with a fashion media mogul along with a photographer who's, of course, played by Fred Astaire. While they're location scouting for their latest photo shoot in a bookstore, they come across this very introverted bookseller who's played by Audrey Hepburn. The photographer finds something very unique and beautiful about this girl, and before you know it, she's whisked away to Paris, where she's quickly transformed into this, runaway supermodel for the world to see. And all along this journey, Audrey Hepburn's character, of course, falls head over heels for Fred Astaire. Of course, there's plenty of musical and dance sequences that take over the majority of Funny Face, and while I didn't really think the narrative and Funny Face was all that original or all that memorable, it hardly matters because the dynamic, dancing and singing talent of Audrey Hepburn and Fred Astaire in one film is all you really need. I mean, the choreography and dance sequences found in Funny Face are really delightful stuff, and I was really surprised at just how well Audrey Hepburn kept up with Fred Astaire, who is arguably one of the greatest dancers who ever lived. So it's all of those sequences that really make Funny Face something, really great. But narrative-wise, compared to something like Breakfast at Tiffany's or, the classic Sabrina, it definitely falls a little bit on the weak side out of the three. But again, those choreography and dance sequences are really great. Visually, it's got a lot going for it. The story, of course, takes place at first in New York City, much like the other films that takes place in New York. Breakfast at Tiffany, of course, takes place in New York City, whereas Sabrina takes place in Long Island. But Funny Face kicks off in New York City before, taking place in Paris, and there's just so many great, moments in the film that, just great set pieces at the Eiffel Tower, streets in Paris that really gives it a really great atmosphere and a really beautiful tone to it. So visually the film looks great, and the dance and choreography and singing sequences really make it something special. But again, in the romance and narrative department, if you're looking for something a little bit stronger, definitely stick with Sabrina or Breakfast at Tiffany's. But nonetheless, just having Audrey Hepburn and Fred Astaire together in one film, acting, singing, dancing, do it all, is a one-of-a-kind thing. So for that alone, Funny Face is definitely worth owning in your Blu-ray collection. And now, AV-wise, all of these films were actually previously available in individual releases, but have just been compiled in one discounted collection. So all the same transfers and audio specifications that were found in those individual releases are carried over in this one. And while that might not gel with certain people, it hardly matters because the existing transfers were absolutely gorgeous. There really was no added room for improvement because everything looked really spot on. Breakfast at Tiffany's, of course, along with a Funny Face. They look absolutely beautiful in the Technicolor. They just look really crisp and bold and vibrant. Colors are just popping off the screen. Skin tones, complexions look really fresh and naturalistic. There's always a very healthy layer of grain, no distorting, aging artifacts to be found in this one. Just a really crisp and naturalistic transfer, exactly what you want to see in something like this one. It really blows you off your socks that films that are, over half a century old can look this good. I mean, I really would cite Breakfast at Tiffany's as a reference example of a film that's, 50 years or, more older, and just how good a film of this age can look on the Blu-ray format. That said, Sabrina, of course, from 1954, filmed in black and white, looks absolutely beautiful. The black and white photography looks great, very, fresh and clean. Blacks look very inky and natural, so not more that you could really ask for, with the black and white photography. Everything comes across really great, light, shadows, no distorting, crushing to be seen whatsoever. So all around, 3 phenomenal transfers that have been ported over into this discounted collection. So everything looks, sounds good, nothing to worry about in the way of dialogue or any of the dancing or singing scenes in Funny Face. Everything comes across really robust and clear, so everything sounds really great. In addition, all of the previous special features that were found in those individual releases have been ported over, and there is nothing but a plethora of stuff to cut into this after you complete the films. You have everything in the way of audio commentaries, retrospective featurettes, you have theatrical trailers, still galleries, everything to cut through in this one. So after the films, there are tons and tons of really nifty and informative special features to cut into. Really great stuff. So all of that said, let's go ahead and take a look at this packaging on the Audrey Hepburn collection. As you can see, you get a really iconic image of the beautiful Miss Hepburn, from a shot of Breakfast at Tiffany's with that iconic hat and, the glasses, in her mouth, just, that really great free-spirited, vibe that she had in that film. Little shot of the spine in there with some really nice, vibrant pink font. And then when you flip that over, some screen grabs from the 3 films that you're going to find in this one, the descriptions of all the films, and kind of a breakdown of all the tech specs. And then when you take this out, it's kind of like a cardboard sleeve in this one, and again, the same cover art on the front of the Blu-ray case. And some different screen grabs on the back, and kind of a breakdown of the special features that you're going to find in on each of the discs. And then when you crack this open, you're going to find some pretty plain disc art on Breakfast at Tiffany's, and then moving on to Sabrina and Funny Face in the back. So, like I said, guys, if you're a big fan of Audrey Hepburn or, just classic, very classy films from the 1950s and 1960s, then I cannot recommend the Audrey Hepburn collection enough. Like I said, all of these films have been previously released in individual releases, so if you're not crazy about all the films, you can still go out and get them individually, but, at least according to me, all these films are really, really classic ones, especially Breakfast at Tiffany's and Sabrina, some of my all-time favorites. So, if you're you're a big fan of Audrey Hepburn or have never really experienced her films, definitely the Audrey Hepburn collection is the way to go to kind of get a great crash course into this iconic figure in movie history. So if you guys want to check it out, it's available right now from Warner Brothers. Okay guys, and the next title that we're going to take a look at is available right now from Universal Studios. It's Season 2 of Bates Motel. Now, when this show got originally announced, my wife and I were very much intrigued by it. We're huge fans of the Psycho legacy, of course, the original Hitchcock classic, all the way through the sequels. So, you know, once we heard about the show, we were very much intrigued. We weren't too sure if it was going to work, but upon the casting announcements of Freddie Highmore, who is an actor that I've really appreciated and loved his work since Finding Neverland, matched with Vera Farmiga, who is another phenomenal actress, Academy Award-nominated actress, who is just, you know, really outdone herself countlessly with all the films she's been, you know, putting out the last few years. We kind of felt that the show was in good hands. So once the first season debuted, we were instantly hooked to this one. I mean, talk about what a great way to, you know, take an iconic concept and story like the Psycho franchise and really modernize it and update it, but really make it feel fresh while really paying, you know, homage and respect to the original Hitchcock classic. Now, before I really get into any sorts of specifics, I'm not going to get too specific, but I might drop a few tidbits here and there that might be spoilers. So if you haven't checked out Season 1, I'd probably suggest that you don't continue watching my overview of Season 2 here. So with that said, be forewarned, but I just want to get into Season 2 a little bit. Like I said, though, you know, coming off of Season 1, we were absolutely hooked. I mean, each episode, you know, was better than the next. It was, you know, just a home run the whole way through. So we were very much on the edge of our seats to check out Season 2. And overall, we were very much pleased with the results. I will say, though, that there are, you know, several episodes where I kind of felt that there was a lot of meandering going on. There just wasn't a whole lot going on that was keeping interest, but right in the final act, and of course right at the end of some of those episodes, there was always something that would make your jaw drop, and you'd be like, oh, now you've got me. Now I'm hooked. I want to see where this goes. So, with the minor exception of just, you know, some meandering moments and, you know, I guess kind of the midway part of the season, I just kind of felt that things weren't, you know, gelling as, you know, well as they did, because it was such a high that they came off of on Season 1. So, of course, Season 2 kicks off with, you know, the death of, you know, Norman's teacher, Blair Watson, and it kind of being known between Norman and his mother that, you know, Norman did it, and, you know, Dylan is, of course, getting, you know, really moving up the ladder in, you know, the drug ring that he's, you know, of course, working in now, and then there's some, you know, really dark, skeletons that are revealed about, you know, Dylan's father figure and whatnot. That comes into play into the season, which I think was definitely one of the higher moments of this season, and it just really casts another dark, glooming cloud over the Bates household, which is really great stuff. But overall, I thought that it was a really solid season. Just slightly fell short of the first season, but, you know, again, you know, the first season was such a high. Every episode was better than the last, so you know, there was just some, you know, some minor missteps with this season where I just kind of felt that the majority of some episodes you kind of felt were meandering, and they were kind of wasting a little bit of time until they got to the final act, and then, you know, there'd be a big jaw-dropping moment that would get you hooked. But then, you know, by the last few episodes of this season, I mean, it is just a roller coaster ride that we were thoroughly hooked into. You know, of course, some, you know, really crazy stuff goes down with Dylan and the drug ring that he's going in. People end up dead. Don't want to get too specific in that respect, and of course, the accusation of, you know, Norman killing his teacher, and, you know, him having to be, you know, submitted to a polygraph test, so that's a big stress over Norman and his mother about whether he's going to be able to successfully pass this test, so that's another thing that's kind of looming the whole season up until the season finale, so very edge of your seat stuff, and I'm just so excited to see where Season 3 is going to take us. But overall, very pleasing, you know, really satisfying season that, you know, we really dug a lot. AV-wise, this of course is a brand new show shot in HD on digital camera, so of course it looks breathtaking. You know, skin tones, everything looks good. Black levels, of course, there's a lot of nighttime scenes. It's a creepy, eerie show, so there's going to be a lot of nighttime scenes. Absolutely no crushing to be seen. Blacks are very clear and visible. Exactly what you want to see in something, you know, this new in the digital age. So everything looks, sounds good. You know, music, sound effects, dialogue, everything comes across very, very crisp. Nothing, you know, to get in the way of your listening enjoyment. There's a few bonus features on here, including deleted scenes. You get an Origins of Psycho Inside Bates Motel featurette, and then a Bates Motel After Hours from the Season 2 premiere and the Season 2 finale. They played those on TV during those respective episodes if you were tuning on weekly like my wife and I were doing, so you would definitely remember them. So, you know, while special features are a little scant, there's still something in there, but of course, you know, the quality of the episodes themselves are what you want to check out. So, if you're a big fan and enjoyed Bates Motel as much as my wife and I did, then I really think you're going to dig Season 2, and all that said, we really can't wait to check out Season 3. So if you guys are big fans of Bates Motel Season 2 is available right now from Universal Studios. Alrighty guys, and the next title that we're going to take a look at is available right now from Anchor Bay Entertainment. It's Supermensch, The Legend of Shep Gordon. Marking the directorial debut of actor Mike Myers, of course from Austin Powers and Wayne's World fame, this finds Myers chronicling the iconic career of manager Shep Gordon. Now, while that may not be a household name to, you know, general, you know, movie and music lovers around the world, he has been synonymous and iconic to, you know, just really getting people's careers off the ground, and he's really carved out a career of making people famous his entire life. After a chance encounter in the late 60s with Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix, Shep Gordon would go on to manage such artists as Alice Cooper, Raquel Welch, Luther Vandross, among many, many more. In addition, he was actually, you know, the central person that was responsible for spearheading the whole celebrity chef phenomenon that has really turned into a billion-dollar phenomenon. He's an incredibly amazing guy, and you get, you know, a lot of cool interviews with some of his best pals, like Michael Douglas and Sylvester Stallone, who really, you know, trace, you know, their experiences and origins with Shep, and just who Shep is as a person. And while I think many of us have this very cliched image of a manager behind, you know, a, you know, big, you know, desk with a cigar in his mouth and doesn't really care about his clients and is very, very, very money hungry, that's the polar opposite of what Shep Gordon is. He is a very heartfelt man who really, you know, puts, you know, blood and tears into the clients that he's repping, and has just, you know, just cares endlessly about people. I mean, you really get a really good handle on that, you know, just through, you know, his experiences and friendship that, you know, he's held with Alice Cooper since, you know, managing him since the 60s, still to this day. They just have an incredible friendship and bond. You see them, you know, playing golf in this one, and it's just, it's very heartfelt and very heartwarming. I mean, it's just, it's amazing to see that a man that was, you know, kind of in this position of making people famous would really care that much about others, to really put his neck on the line as much as he did for them. So really amazing stuff. For a directorial debut by Mike Myers, you know, it's quite a unique kind of first stab at directing. I think many people would have assumed he would go for a movie, but instead opted to do this documentary. And while it's a little choppy in some sections, they kind of start a little unusually, you know, kind of going right for the jugular about, you know, kind of retracing, you know, funny and interesting anecdotes and stories throughout his career. And then it isn't until later in the documentary that they take kind of a biographical approach about, you know, Shep's childhood and early beginnings in life. So, you know, while it's probably not what we're used to in documentary storytelling, I actually like the approach that Myers took at it, and I think it kind of, you know, really gave a really well-rounded picture of who Shep Gordon is, which once again is an incredible man. So anybody that's, you know, has dreams or aspirations of starting a career in the entertainment industry, you can only hope that you get somebody as special and as caring as Shep Gordon in your defense, because I think, as Sylvester Stallone puts it best, Shep is best at, you know, keeping the wolf at the door. He's always been seen as a protector to his clients and cares about them unconditionally, and you know, in many areas, as you kind of get into the background of who he is, like I mentioned earlier, you know, he's really made a lifetime out of, you know, making other people famous and never really carved out a life of his own. So you really kind of shed, there's a, you know, quite a bright, shining light shed on that about how, you know, he hasn't really had any time to create a family of his own, and he kind of lives a bit of a lonely life in, you know, certain aspects. So very, very awesome directorial debut by Mike Myers, very unique. I really didn't expect something like this from him, you know, for his first directing effort, but one that I really liked quite a lot. AV quality from Anchor Bay looks really good. Obviously, this is a, you know, newly made documentary, presumably shot on digital camera, so everything looks very good, you know, a lot of talking heads, you know, interview moments, so, you know, skin tones and complexions look really nice. There's a lot of great photography taken at Shep's house in Maui, so you get some beautiful sunsets and some just, you know, beautiful establishing shots of the Hawaiian landscape that looks really, really beautiful on this Blu-ray presentation. In addition, the audio track sounds really good. Again, this is a documentary, so you're going to have a lot of dialogue, very dialogue-heavy, people talking directly to the camera about their experiences and who Shep is. So dialogue comes across with no hitches whatsoever, no distortion to be seen. Unfortunately, there's not one special feature. I thought that there would be, you know, maybe extended interviews or some interviews that ended up on the cutting room floor, but alas, nothing to be seen in here. But it's okay, because the quality of, you know, the documentary itself is definitely something to be seen, and I think it's really cool that Mike Myers chose to shine a light on somebody, you know, that's, again, not a household name to a lot of people, but is just absolutely synonymous in the entertainment industry. I mean, once you cut into this and you see how many people Shep is known and whose lives he's touched, it's absolutely amazing about this. So I think that it's, you know, very welcoming to see that a man of this stature got a documentary to kind of chronicle his whole life and his achievements. So very well done on behalf of Mike Myers. So once again, guys, if you're interested in this sort of thing, definitely check it out. It's available right now from Anchor Bay Entertainment. Alrighty guys, and the final title that we're going to discuss in this week's episode of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up is available right now from Warner Brothers, and it's the extended director's cut of Once Upon a Time in America. Now, when this film was originally released back in 1984, it was cited as a critical and box office disaster, but as years have gone on, you know, people have kind of gone back and tried to restore Sergio Leone's intended vision for this film, which originally he wanted this film to run about 250 to 260 minutes, but of course the distributors had quite a conflict of interest with that runtime and forced Leone to painfully recut his masterpiece to a 2.5 hour runtime. And that's really what we've been subjected to over the years. The theatrical cut clocked in at around 229 minutes, and that's the cut that we were subjected to on Warner Brothers' previous Blu-ray release about a year and a half ago. But now, collaborating with Leone's family and collaborators and kind of picking apart scraps and fragments of footage that got left on the cutting room floor that Leone felt was very crucial to the tone and the overall, you know, story and plot of this film, they've kind of gone back and reinstated about 20 plus minutes of footage back into the film to kind of give people a more clear understanding of what Leone's vision was meant to be. So this new cut, which is being deemed the extended director's cut, clocks in at a whopping 251 minutes. So for those of you that are keeping score at home, that's about 4 hours and 11 minutes. An absolute epic runtime, by far the longest film that I've ever sat through, but one that I cannot complain about whatsoever. It's an absolutely magnifying, you know, just absolutely, you know, magnetic film that just draws you in from the first frame all the way to the end credits. But I'm going to get into that in just a second. But for those of you that have never seen Once Upon a Time in America, it's of course directed by the acclaimed Sergio Leone, who, although he had a very modest output, I believe he only put out about 7 or 8 films in his lifetime, most famously responsible for the Man with No Name trilogy. Once Upon a Time in America is just another one of his masterpieces. I personally think it's his finest film of all time, and it just, you know, bolsters such an all-star cast with Robert De Niro, James Woods, Joe Pesci, Burt Young, and a young Jennifer Connelly making her first appearance in any film. So this film centers on, you know, a group of young Jewish kids that are, you know, kind of start off as street hustlers, pickpockets, and it follows them over the course in their Jewish New York City, district, over the course of 30 plus years, and they kind of join, the ranks of, getting to become more disciplined and more capable gangsters and really carve out a name for themselves as the Jewish Mafia. So it's very epic. Robert De Niro is, of course, the star of this film, and after some series of events happens, amongst the group, he is banished out from his home city, and 30-odd years later, he comes back to face the ghosts and regrets that he left there. So, again, an absolute epic story in every sense that you could possibly imagine when it comes to movie making. An all-star cast. I mean, just everything is absolutely gorgeous in this one. Sergio Leone opted to shoot this one predominantly in New York City and Williamsburg. I know he did some shooting in Rome and Italy, a little bit in Florida as well, but the production value in this epic film is just absolutely beautiful. I mean, the costume design, everything just looks so authentic and real. It's just, absolutely incredible, and this is really what period piece filmmaking is all about. Just crisp attention to detail in the architecture, again, the production design, the costume, the wardrobe, everything about it just screams, just period piece, because this does start off in the 1920s during the Prohibition era, and it takes us all the way to the 1960s, and throughout the film, it kind of keeps jumping back and forth to the past, to the present, and, so on and so forth over this, 4-hour plus runtime of a film, but it's incredibly engaging. I mean, the characters, you just get so sucked into the friendship that these, that these Jewish kids have together, and that they'll, really do anything for themselves, and, they always put the gang before anybody else and what have you. So it's very great, and it's just, kind of driven that much more home by the great performances by people like Robert De Niro and James Wood, who, some of them just kind of give some of the best performances of their career. James Woods especially is a real standout in this one as De Niro's best friend in the gang. Just absolutely fantastic stuff to be seen. So I cannot recommend this film enough to people. I mean, obviously, if you're a fan of Sergio Leone, you're going to want to check this one out, but another thing that I think is so great about this film is when you think of mafia or mob movies, I think that we're so accustomed to thinking about Italian or Irish mafia movies, that Martin Scorsese really ushered in with things like Goodfellas or Mean Streets, and then, of course, the runaway success of HBO's The Sopranos. So it's really rare and far and few between that you see a really epic story about the Jewish mafia whose, ranks were probably just as high as any Irish or Italian mafia, and there's just so many great, rich stories to be told about the Jewish mafia, and this is absolutely the best one out there. So I really wish that more filmmakers would kind of look back into the Jewish mafia history to tell some newer mob stories, because this is just an absolutely phenomenal one. Spans, just decades of time, and, follows these, incredible characters throughout it, and just absolutely amazing stuff. Just, A+, top quality filmmaking. Unfortunately, the lackluster response to this one, of course, with the distributors kind of, cutting Leone's vision apart and ripping it apart, really deemed it a box office disaster. It never recouped its money during its original theatrical run. It got pulled from theaters very early. So throughout the years, various cuts have kind of come to light to try and restore Leone's vision. But as it stands now, this is really the closest to what, we're getting to what Leone really envisioned for it. So I'm really happy that Warner Brothers went to great pains and, kind of went to the extra effort to kind of restore this to the best that they could, to at least as close as to what Leone could have possibly wanted, in collaboration with his family and collaborators, of course. So, if you're familiar with the previous Warner Brothers Blu-ray edition, you're basically getting the same transfer here. Again, the theatrical cut is included along with the extended director's cut, so you're getting the same AV quality in that sense. Everything looks very good. Natural grain is present, very filmic looking. Throughout the whole film, there's a very dreary, overcast look throughout it, so it's a very, it's very drained of color. There's a lot of very monotone colors in it, but they're all reproduced very naturally, exactly as they, were intended to look. So everything looks very good. Close-ups looked really good on the performers, nice detail, a lot of the scarring in James Wood's face comes through, like the details in De Niro's face, hair, everything just comes across, and black levels especially. Like I mentioned, color is very, diluted in this one, so a lot of blacks and, guys wearing, darker trench coat colors and what have you. So black levels come across very visible and very healthy, which is really great. Now, the extended director's cut, again, of course, runs about 20-plus minutes, and they had to go, the film is actually prefaced with a bit of an explanation as about, where these, newer fragments of footage came and, where they were pulled from. So they weren't exactly pulled from the most ideal existing elements, but Warner Brothers really did the best they could to seamlessly branch it in. So you can obviously tell which moments they are, because they are, of course, of a little, lesser quality than the overall, the greater majority of the film. Colors are definitely not as rich. There's definitely a bit of a drop in quality in there, but if it was all, just to kind of restore Leone's vision as close to what it was, originally meant to be, I'm all for it. And I mean, you can look, you can hear and see everything fine, but you can definitely see that there's an obvious drop in quality, so you're absolutely going to be able to tell where, this recently or this newly installed footage pops up throughout this, this new extended director's cut. In addition, you get some special features in here. You get an excerpt from Sergio Leone documentary, some theatrical trailers, and a audio commentary from a film historian. So overall, great packaging, an absolutely phenomenal mafia movie that focuses on the Jewish mafia. For my money, this is Sergio Leone's finest film, kind of just driven home by some of the best performers, to be seen in movies. Robert De Niro, James Woods, Joe Pesci, just absolutely great performances and a great epic story to be seen. So all that said, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging on this one. As you can see, this extended director's cut, this version comes in a nice hardcover, casing on the outside. They did release, a standard Blu-ray case packaging for this one, but I would really opt for this one if you're a big fan of this film or see Sergio Leone's output in general. But very good stuff, very sturdy and what have you. Give you a nice shot of the spine there, and then the back you get a cool screen grab as the characters as children, which you see predominantly early in the film. And then when you take this out, you get a shot of the Blu-ray case, which is basically, this is basically what you will get on the other edition if you just don't want to get the hardcover casing. So again, the same cover there, and then on the back you get a description of the film, a breakdown of the special features, and some screen grabs. And then when you crack this one open, you get two discs in here. You get the theatrical cut, and then, of course, the extended director's cut, which, once again, clocks in at 251 minutes. So very cool stuff to be seen in here. And then when you go and open, kind of go in the box, you do get a digital copy code, and then you get a little pamphlet in here that kind of goes into the restoration process with all this newly, installed footage. They kind of do a comparison of how things look and what have you. And then, which is a cool bonus here, you get a digibook utilizing that same cover art here, and it's very cool. You get an introduction by Martin Scorsese, who him and his collaborators were integral in kind of getting this restoration off the ground and kind of fulfilling it. You get some cool images of Sergio Leone, some, obviously some screen grabs from the film itself. Kind of just goes into the origins of the film, the characters, the casting, and what have you. So very cool stuff to see all this included, various poster art and lobby cards. So a really cool, addition to be to have in this, hardcover digibook kind of packaging. So once again, guys, Once Upon a Time in America is absolutely a masterpiece. Just epic storytelling, an epic runtime, but just so, it's a beautiful film, very poetic, and just, amazing performances with such rich production value to be seen in this one. So if you guys are a fan of Sergio Leone, the actors seen in this one, or just mafia movies in general, definitely check out the extended director's cut of Once Upon a Time in America. It's one of the finest mafia movies of all time. It's available right now from Warner Brothers.